Welcome to the A New Narrative podcast, where we discuss all things health and human design. I'm Sam Zagar, your projector guide and host. This is a show about deconditioning. My goal is to confront our conditioned, not self narratives so that we can write them anew through the lens of our true selves. It's through this process that I hope to guide you to your signature life. I got a DM on Instagram recently, and it was from someone who had recently started watching my YouTube channel. And she said, I'd love to hear more of your story. She really liked the content, the educational content I had been sharing, but she was requesting something more personal, and she was requesting like a backstory. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, I've already done that. But what I would consider, like, when someone says, what's your story? If you say that to anybody, like, it would really intrigue me to know what that person responds with first. Like, your story is not specific, right? So what someone would end up sharing for that are likely things that feel significant in their life. When I started this podcast, I believe it's episode 17, my money story or my money narrative, I shared a lot about my story there, but in so many ways it was the story of leading up to human design, or leading up to and the first year or two of human design. If someone asked me now, what's my story, I think the story is different. And don't get me wrong, history didn't change. The past is the past. But there is a longer perspective and awareness that I have on my overall history. There's a lot of integrating that I've done in the last few years that's given me a different perspective on a lot of things. But what I want to talk about, what really came up, I knew if let's say it had been a podcast interview where someone was asking me, hey Sam, what's your story? What would have first came out of me would have been actually pretty recent information, pretty recent history, because my story has changed. And I would love to make some pretty comical statements in that. From an outsider's perspective, in many ways, my story hasn't changed at all. That's one of the coolest things about human design is sometimes there's not actually that much about life that changes, but you look at things differently. You act differently. You make decisions differently. I still live in the same place. I still live in the same house. I still have the same kid. I still have the same dogs. I still have the same job. I still have the same parents. And yet, this is going to be an episode that's for me. So much of what I share is for you. I think, what's the title of this going to be that's going to get someone's attention? How do I pull them in to listen to it? How am I supporting them? What value am I offering them? I think if someone's going to listen to me talk, if you're going to listen to a podcast episode, I'm taking up your time. I recognize that. If I'm going to take up your time, I want to give you something of value. But I also have to recognize that sometimes I am not very aware of what's valuable and what's not. There are a lot of things that I share that I don't think are valuable at all, but that's just, short-sighted perspective on my part, because when I get a lot of recognition, it reminds me of what other people actually get value out of. I want to bring up a song because I feel like there's a song that I had to listen to this spring, and it was a little bit of a domino effect. Maven loves dance music. Maven loves techno. He loves drum and bass. He's an MG. He likes high energy music. I like that music when I'm with Maven, probably because he's so happy, he's so satisfied, like it feels good to take that in with him. If I'm not with Maven, I'm probably not going to listen to music like that because it would be very stimulating very quickly for me. Now, there's a song that Maven loves. It's by Tiesto and 21 Savage, and I believe that it's called Both. Now, the main line of this song, the main lyric is, and I'm not even going to quote it right, they tell me that it's love or money. I want both. Ain't no way you can take that from me. I want both. And we're just singing along, and it kind of hits me like, I want love and money. And do I feel like it's love or money? And I realized, oh yeah. Like, I'm actually emotional right now thinking about this. So much has changed. The question of, is it love or money? Feels like such a deep insecurity. It feels like a deep wound. It feels like a huge loss. One of the things I want to acknowledge is that I am successful in my career in human design. I have always, since divorcing, since being a single mom, I had responsibilities. I had things to take care of. I didn't have spousal support. I rejected my child support. I was very, very independent about, like, I wanted out of my marriage. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to prove, of course, ego. I wanted to prove that I could be. And I did. I absolutely did. Which was wonderful and also maybe not that good. Because, well, it was wonderful that I could prove to myself that I could provide for myself and provide for my son. It was a little bit like a badge of honor that I was wearing, maybe a little too proudly or a little unnecessarily, because it made me quite determined, quite prideful. And I'm not hating on being proud or prideful. But I became very I don't need anybody's help. I don't need anything from anybody. I became hyper independent. I'm also a single definition, right? I'm only one channel. No splits in me. Single definition people are, by nature, much more independent. As in, we don't need anybody. That tends to be our perspective on things. As a woman, this energy of, I don't need anybody, I can do it all myself, especially I can be the breadwinner, I can be the provider, I can be the solo parent. Let's just say there are some more masculine feeling qualities that were coming out of me. And yet I deeply, deeply, deeply craved certain feminine things in my life. But it's very hard to step into this feminine role when you're a provider and you're stuck in survival, and you don't have necessarily a masculine counterpart in your life. It was pretty hard for me to find my balance in a lot of ways. Because I got divorced and then became financially hyper independent, I became very, 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 very focused on my money. And then, learning I'm a projector and that my signature is success. Again, I become quite focused on my money. And I associate success with making a lot of money. And so then I feel this even further pressure that, if I can prove that human design is valid or real, then I'm going to be very, very successful as a projector, and I'm going to make a lot of money. And it also started to create a narrative that making a lot of money was like part of how I was proving that I was correct within my system. I still have a touch of that. I still believe that there is a level of financial success that validates the correctness of the system for me. But I want to acknowledge that as I got deeper into my experiment, I think relationships got harder for me. I think, relationships definitely got a lot harder because I started to look at them very differently. I started to get very critical. I started to look at everybody's design versus how they were acting or behaving. I started to be very afraid of being conditioned. If I could sense that anybody was not self, or even if I assumed that somebody was not self, I wouldn't want them near me because I saw not self or even just unaware other people as dangerous, sick, contagious. Like, ooh, you can't keep your not self-conditioned cooties over there. My relationship struggled. And over the last, let's say, 5 years in human design, I watched these like cycles play out where I would either do really well in a relationship or really well financially. And maybe I could manage both of them for like a month at a time. But then immediately one would drop. Like if I was doing better in my business, I was not doing well in a relationship. And if I was doing well in a relationship, I was probably not doing that well in my business. And I would maintain a little bit of like, I'm kind of doing good at both of them. And then I would start to lose one or the other. But starting to lose one or the other would start like a panic spiral in me. And then I would crash so hard, so fast. I definitely have, let's refer to conditioning as baggage. I have some negative baggage. I have some negative conditioning where I freak the fuck out when certain things happen in my relationships. I am, I could look at a lot of different mechanics to explain this, but I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of being abandoned. I'm very, very, very afraid of somebody settling for me. That's got to be like one of the worst fears. If someone's with me, but they're like indifferent about it, I can't think of anything. Oh, I hate that. Like that nausea kind of gaggy feeling when I feel there is the fact that like it turns my stomach. It absolutely turns my stomach. It stresses me out. It kills my appetite for me to think about losing my relationships. For me to think about losing love. When I lose those things, the mental spiral that I go down. What did I do? Should I have done something different? One of the worst, most challenging things is this question of what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Should I have done something different? When you know that you've acted out of your authority, out of your true self, but the other person doesn't like it or doesn't receive it. You can behave correctly and other people can have a problem with that, and that can definitely fuck you up, being like, did I make the right choice or not? Because it feels good in my body, but also dealing with this person afterwards doesn't feel good, I noticed that over the last couple of years, there was this narrative that was developing in me that said I couldn't be successful at work and be in a relationship. I really started to look at my content over the last year. I took the last year to be like a single projector because I recognized that there was a problem. Something in my relationships was screwing with my finances. And so I told myself I couldn't have relationships because it was messing with my finances and I couldn't risk that. I made a rule for myself. I made an arbitrary, not self mental rule. Why would I do that? I was trying to give myself a boundary, but that boundary was mental. It was overriding my authority. It tells me I really couldn't trust my authority at the time, because if it's right or not, my authority will let me know, not this timeline I've set in my head. The fact that I even set that timeline, and honestly, I'm still glad I did it, but the fact that I even set that timeline, I'm kind of looking back at that like, wow, that tells me I had absolutely locked in the narrative of relationships kill my finances. So I'm a pattern hunter. There are a lot of aspects of my design that make me a pattern hunter. I'm always looking for something to make sense, especially being a strategic mind. Where's the pattern? Where's the pattern? I tried to look at the pattern of when I'd made the least amount of money in human design and when I've made the most amount of money. And I'm glad that I did this because I got some interesting information. When I have made the least amount of money in human design, there are typically two different reasons why. You might laugh at both of them. I hope you do. Reason number one is that I'm trying too hard. I'm literally trying to work too hard. I'm trying to be too productive. I'm trying to generate. I'm trying to initiate. I'm trying to manifest. When things start to go quiet, if my reaction is to panic, freak out, and try and come out with new offerings, new sessions, new classes, new videos, and I try and look for any way to generate money, whether it's through affiliate links or sponsorships, like when I start to look for teeny tiny little ways outside of my greatest source of recognition, I've learned that that does not tend to go very well for me. I can end up spending a ton of energy trying to accumulate or generate little resources all over the place because I'm not someone who can just like sit and twiddle my thumbs, right? Like I will never let myself fall into a financial hole where I have to say to myself, like, I truly did nothing. I waited for things to show up. Like I don't believe in that. I would find that to be wildly irresponsible being a parent. But there have been enough times where I've kind of gone into a panic and I've tried to quickly generate things, and it's not coming from a place of overflow. It's not like I'm so like grounded and full and like I'm just going to use different words of full, filled. Oh my God, that's not the right word. I'm not depleted. That's the right thing. It's like when I'm coming from this place of I'm so nourished that there is this overflow, that's the time to be creating things. But if I'm coming from a place of depletion, of lack, of loss, and I try to create from there, I've never experienced ease. I've never experienced the success with that. Now, here's the other reason why my finances absolutely crumple sometimes. This is not going to be easy for me to say because I've been processing this for months, waiting to get to the Grock Place, the embodied place of being able to share this. In my relationships, I can see that I bring certain conditioned qualities in that I'm not necessarily aware of when it's happening. They're not real parts of me, but they're parts of me I haven't dropped or lost or gotten rid of yet. There's this need in me to appease my partners, to like be the little kid who's not causing disruption. Be the little kid who's not misbehaving. As in, be the little girl who is hyper accommodating. This has always blown up in my face. Because what I perceive to be as accommodating and caring and like considerate compromise. I have consistently throughout my life numbed or quieted my own wants, my voice, my behavior, so that I don't piss people off, so that they don't leave me. But not just that, so that someone else feels good. It's not just so that I don't feel bad. It truly is so that the other person feels good. I really, truly, truly, truly approach my intimate relationships from this place of, if I treat them a certain way, then I'm leading by example and they will treat me back a certain way. As in, if I want affection, I go give affection and then they'll reciprocate. And I learned that it doesn't work that way. I would always try and like bait people into ending up in a place where I was getting what I wanted in some way. Like if I wanted to go for a walk, I might say to someone like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? And like there's this like sugary sweet kind of voice. You know, God forbid, I would say to the manifester, my emotional manifester, like, hey, you want to go for a walk? There's no fucking way he wants to go for a walk with me if I do that. Changing my voice. Asking. Like asking yes or no questions. No. I'm with the emotional manifester now. You know what I do if I want him to go for a walk with me? I put on my shoes. Straight up. I say, I want to go for a walk. And then I walk to my room and I put on my runners, and it takes me like 5 minutes to pick out my outfit and the right runners I want to wear. And that gives his emotional authority enough time to decide whether or not he's coming with me. And if he's not going to come with me, doesn't matter. I'm still going to go for a walk. If he does want to come with me, excellent. He just came with me of his own, like, deciding or initiating or whatever. But like, just that teeny tiny little example I just gave there has absolutely drastically changed my life in the last few months. I used to be whiny and desperate and thirsty and like, oh, these are the worst projector qualities. Because I was just trying to like appease everyone and like be pleasant and be considerate, and that's not me. I'm not saying that I'm not pleasant or considerate. I'm just saying that like all of that was not actually me coming out. Me coming out is like, yo, I want to go for a walk. You're either going to join me or you're not. That level of autonomy in my relationship, I would have never done that before, because I hear that and I'm like, oh, you know, what if that feels inconsiderate to the other person? Really? You know what my mind says? It goes, well, why wouldn't you invite them? Don't you want them to feel invited? Don't you want them to feel wanted? And I was like, holy shit, Sam, you have literally been treating everyone in your life the way that you want to be treated, which is a lovely golden rule, except we're not all the same. Truly. Treating, you know, someone else like a splenic projector doesn't go well when they're an emotional manifester. I've hacked a lot of design in the last couple of months. Now, getting back to this question of like, they tell me that it's love or money, but I want both. So I looked at, you know, when did I make very little money? And when did I make really good money? So we've identified 2 reasons why I stop making money or I don't make very good money. You know, when I stop being myself, when I just try way too hard to appease other people, when I behave in the ways that I think are going to make other people feel good or comfortable or regulated, I completely stop paying attention to like my life, my success, where I'm recognized, what I want, what my needs are. I was conditioned as a child to think that to prioritize myself was outrageously selfish. And yet, when I prioritize other people and I try and, you know, guide them or lead them or usher them along or help them, we both know that that's probably my desire transference. I don't need to lead anybody anywhere. I don't need to try to be a role model. I need to live out my life, and I naturally am a role model for the right people. I gotta accept that. So when I've made really good money, what has been going on in my life? Because I had this narrative also of when I came back from Italy, the month I came back from Italy was the best financial month I'd ever had. Why? Why was coming back from Italy the best financial month I'd ever had? Is it because I was invited to go to Italy? Is it because Amy Lee asked me to come to her place and join her? Maybe. Is it because I did something big and expansive and scary that prior I hadn't ever seen myself as capable of? Was that belief, that increase in self-worth, was that the thing that helped pull in the finances? Was I just doing a phenomenal job with my clients at the time and I was incredibly well recognized? Was it that I was in love? I'm going to think about that for a sec, because I was in love when I was in Italy. I was in love with life. I was in love with myself. I was in love with potential. I was in love with the future. And I was in love with Brayton. It's also not lost on me, though, that I was not back from Italy for very long before Brayton and I broke up. And I was doing exceptionally well financially at that time. Did that start to contribute to the narrative of when I'm single, I do so much better financially? And is it because my focus and my attention are on my system, are on my clients? I have an ego, let's say that. I was going to say I have a thing where I get mad. I have an ego. I have a defined ego, but it's unconsciously defined. So it surprises me too. I don't always recognize that I have it. But I got this ego and it gets mad sometimes. And when it gets really, really mad, it's like I can feel that, maybe it's not mad at all. Maybe that's just what I'm labeling what I would call like this growing intensity of willpower inside of me. I sometimes feel this growing intensity of willpower inside of me where I simply will not accept something anymore. Now, in April, when I went to Vancouver Island, I had done so much work before I went because I wanted to be able to take 2 weeks off, which meant I doubled my work schedule before I went, so I wasn't really feeling a loss. I recorded a lot more content before I was gone. I edited more. I really filled in a whole bunch of sessions, and I expected all of that stuff to make me a lot of money over the next 2 weeks while I was on vacation. And it didn't. And so while I was on vacation, I was just watching my money do nothing. And in that place of doing nothing, you definitely start to feel this pressure of like, oh fuck, I don't understand the pattern. I've been doing this for 5 years. I have almost lost my money many times throughout, but I've always recovered. I've always actually been safe. In fact, while it feels like I am consistently repeating this loss or re-ending up in this place, it's never actually as scary as it was the time before. Every time I'm like, I'm running out of money. It's less scary than the time before because there's this growing faith or belief in like, no, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. Like I'll get really, really good at driving and then at some point, I'll slip into autopilot and I will start to lose my money. And then I wake up and I'm like, no, Sam, get better about your mechanics. Get more discerning, get more. And of course, I'm a pattern hunter. So what are the patterns? What actually makes me the most money? So for the last 4 months, I've really been like, okay, Sam, what makes me the most money? Can we break this? Can we break this this block of understanding? Can I finally understand how I've been doing this? How do I make the most money? And I never look at my business from a place of like, this is the formula for how to make a bunch of money. If you create this, it will funnel into this, and then it will funnel into this, and then blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't look at it that way. I tend to look at those kinds of stats after I've done something. Like I do something and then I'm like, oh, shit, that was a funnel. Oh, hey, look, it did this. when I do it kind of by accident or like unaware-wise, it always works better. If I ever come at this from a place of like, this is how I need to, it's all mental and it doesn't work. Like it might work a little bit and then it just stops working. Like it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So May of this year, and you're probably aware of this if you've listened to some other episodes, May of this year, I called the emotional manifestor to apologize for a couple of things based on some new awarenesses that I had from my, 10 months of single processing or whatever. Once the manifestor and I are in aura, it's kind of like all bets are off. So we've been together, we're still together. And yet, that's a segue. I'm not really here to talk about the relationship. But like, if you ask me if I'm in a relationship with a manifestor, I'm going to say yeah. If you ask him if we're in a relationship, he'll probably look at you and tell you to fuck off. Because he doesn't like being asked questions. He doesn't like pressure. He's emotional, right brain, right mind, peripheral view. Like, he's only left in his environment. Thank God. There's a little bit of leftness so that we're both busybodies in our perfect environment. But otherwise, like, he is very, 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 very different from me. And we're both third lines, The idea that we've broken up and gotten back together so many times, it's really annoying when people are like, so, what makes you think it's gonna work this time? And we're both like, I don't know. Truly, we don't know. We're trying again. For myself, I recognize, though, that one of the things that really doesn't work in my relationships is the belief that I have to choose between love or money. I recognized that as long as I had this belief that it was love or money, I was actually never going to have love or money because I was going to consistently waffle between the two of them because I'm not sure which one I'd rather have. And so I felt that ego willpower building up inside of me. And I felt this inner determination, this inner drive, borderline this inner rage. Because I don't have the energy to consistently fail in relationships if they're going to crash my finances. And so I listened to that song. I swear to God, I listened to that 21 Savage Tiesto song, both, enough times that it created a new neural pathway. And every time I would start to choose one or the other, I would hear this song that's like, don't tell me that it's love or money. I want both. I'm innocence motivation. It's not about leading other people to what they want. That's desire transference. Innocence motivation is, what do I want? What do I want? Where do I want to lead myself? You know what I want? I want love. Of course I want love. Who doesn't? You're lying if you say that you don't. Who doesn't want love? And who doesn't want money? So I decided I would have both. It might be an odd thing to say, but it was truly as fucking simple as that. I actually just decided that I wanted and was going to have both. I simply wasn't going to accept the belief that I couldn't have both. I would not accept that belief anymore. That's it. That's all that changed. And it completely changed my relationship. Absolutely completely changed my relationship. One of the things that I would like to say, and maybe I should have started with this, is that I am approaching the most profitable month I've ever had in human design. And that is all thanks to the course that I came out with. And the course that I came out with was the easiest offering I have probably ever come out with. And here's why. This is so fucking important for projectors to hear. Here's why. I'm well recognized. I'm well known. I'm well known within the human design industry. I'm well known on Instagram, and I am becoming quite well known on YouTube because there's not that many human design people doing YouTube. I get consistent comments, messages, testimonials. The number one thing, if there was an average recognition that I got, if there was a median average or whatever, it's this phrase. Sam, I love how you take the complex stuff in human design and you make it easy to understand. Just that. Sam, I love how you make challenging human design easy to understand. The recognition that I make human design easy to understand. It was like out of nowhere, it became so loud. It was like I couldn't stop hearing the phrase. I couldn't stop seeing the phrase. It was so clear that this phrase was trying to get my attention, that it was trying to guide me. It was trying to lead me to the correct work for me. I dabbled in a lot of like health-based things this year because I have a wonderful background in health stuff, and being a splenic person, I'm always going to be personally focused on health things. But I felt that, in the last 6 months, my interests not even interests, my hunting, I was seeking, I was looking for information. I was hoping to come across information that was going to shift something for me. I didn't know what I was trying to shift. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just knew that I was looking. And it's like, if I'm the core in the middle and I sent all of these little like tendrils out from me out to go seek and hunt and look around for the pattern, the information, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was I was looking for. But the fact that I was looking, I recognize as part of the problem. I was looking, I wasn't listening. Because if I had been listening, I likely would have heard sooner. You make challenging human design easy to understand. And so when that phrase started to come through for me, it started to get really loud in a time where I was really struggling to believe that I was going to be able to be in a relationship and make money. I've been consistently battling this narrative that I have to choose. When I get into relationships, I always see my finances start to diminish. When they start to diminish, I start to panic. When they start to panic, I start to act not self. And I start to seek, I start to hunt, I start to look, I start to explore. I'm trying to find the solution. But there is this like teeny tiny voice. There's this teeny tiny voice. And I heard this when I was on Vancouver Island in April, and I let it out and I said it to my mom. And I was like, what if it's still supposed to get easier? It's so hard for me to think that this could be true. What if, as a projector success, I'm really not here to do, I'm here to see. It's all about knowing my system. It's all about my reputation. Like, I'm a non-energy type. I'm not here to do. We're not supposed to be stuck in survival mode anymore. What if I actually surrender? What if I actually let go? What if I actually trust? But it's not just this frivolous trust. It's not this ungrounded trust. It's like trust in what I've already done really well. Trust in the recognition that I've been hearing and receiving the entire time. As my finances were starting to diminish, while I was reestablishing my relationship with the emotional manifester, that pressure of, oh God, I'm going to have to pick one or the other. And if I'm going to have to pick one or the other, I'm always going to have to pick money because I'm a mother and I'm a parent and I have responsibilities. And as much as heartbreak sucks, starving might suck more. I don't know. So I always fall back on my responsibilities. But I'm so upset about that because I truly don't believe that I have to forfeit love in order to survive. I don't believe that narrative. I won't believe that narrative. So if I recognize that I will not believe that narrative, I better not act like I believe that narrative. So as the money was going down, and I was really holding on to this, like, do not seek more, do not hunt more, do not go generate more. I started to hear the, like, you make challenging human design easy to understand. You make challenging human design easy to understand. Now, I brought out a session this year called the Strategy and Authority session. And I recognized it was where most people needed to start because the truth is whether or not, well, people just tend to think that they know more about human design than they do. People tend to think that they're more advanced in the information than they are. There are a lot of times people be like, oh, I've known about design for years. I totally live my strategy and authority. And we'd be in a new session and they would misname the centers. They wouldn't be able to layer information. They wouldn't be able to do any kind of holistic analysis. It became very clear to me over the last few months that a lot of people are very, 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 very beginner in human design. I'm not super cheap to work with, and I'm not super expensive to work with, from my perspective. But a lot of people, it's not easy to afford my services. The strategy and authority session is one of the most affordable sessions I ever came out with because it's only $150, but it's also only 30 minutes long. At the end of that 30-minute session, people would be put into the foundation of their design. They would have a much better understanding of strategy and authority. But I never just did strategy and authority. I would always ask people what was going on in their personal life, and I would weave in different elements, and I would make it very personal for them. And at the end of these sessions, I'm always asked, how do I continue working with you? And so because of that, I came up with these packages. And the packages were okay. Truly, the packages were okay. I hate chat support. I absolutely hate chat support. Every time I get into a package that has chat support, I'm just like, why did I do this? Because my focus is so intense that I give it to people in session, and then when I close the session, I need to close that focus. But when people have chat support, I can open my phone and be hit with a question, and it puts me into this response mode. And if I don't deal with it, I'm afraid I'm going to forget it, which is not necessarily great as a business owner. Offering packages is a really good way to make money. I made fine, good, comfortable money doing packages. They're worth it. However, when I teach classes, I do significantly better. Not only do I make much better money, but it's a lower energy output. So, it doesn't surprise me that what came out was a class, but it wasn't just a class. It was a course, because after having so many strategy and authority sessions, it was so clear to me what people struggle with reading the body graph. That's the core of it, how to be able to look at a body graph and put the information together. Now, a lot of the times when people are selling a human design course, they're marketing it to specific people for specific reasons. This is for coaches who want to do this, or this is for people who want to become human design readers, or this is for... I don't care about that. Truly, I don't care. I don't even want to assume what you're going to do with the information. I don't like putting the parameters on my students, clients, that way, as if to say, I'm for you if you want this, because it feels desire-ish, I'm trying to lead you somewhere. Whereas this is much more from my innocent place, really from a 6 place. It's here's the information, do what you will with it. That's very much where I'm coming from. I don't care if you want to give a reading. I don't care if you want to read for yourself. I don't care if you just have some questions to be answered. I don't care if you're just wanting to take me in, right? It's none of my business why you want this information. God, that feels good to say. It feels so good to say that. It's my responsibility to show up and provide the information. It's not my responsibility how you apply it or what you do with it. I also know that human design is the best when done orally. Live, human to human transferring of the information is really what we're looking for. If you just listen to a lecture, an old lecture from Raw, you're going to get a lot of information, but it's nowhere near as powerful or potent as if, Raw had talked to you about it. I recognize that there are a lot of ways that human design is taught that are in accordance with how other things are taught, how other courses are taught, whether they are downloadable modules or whatever. There's just like, there's an expectation for how like classes or schooling is done. I'm not certifying anybody. I'm not testing anybody. You can't prove anything with this course. You can't put a certificate on the wall and be like, Sam approves me to give readings. Absolutely not. I will not attach my reputation to whatever you do with your clients. I'll attach my reputation to the information I'm willing to share and deliver and blah, blah, blah. But what you do with the information afterwards is your business, your prerogative, and I truly want no responsibility for it. I have been asked to teach a course for years, but I consistently saw the problems that other people had in teaching the course. They either weren't teaching source-based, or they weren't doing it live, or they weren't allowing time for questions, or they were requiring receptive people to perform strategically. That is not going to happen in my classes. That will not happen in my classes. I guarantee you, the amount of receptive people that will show up to take my classes or my course in comparison to other people who are not aware of how to make things more comfortable for receptive people, I'm definitely going to get more business this way. I get a ton of business from receptive people because I'm aware of how to decondition strategic elements in them. I show up to be the thing that they're used to having to contort themselves to becoming. I am your strategy. You don't need strategy when you're with me. I am your strategy. I pull. I ask. I respect the way that your memory works. I respect the awareness that you have. There is in no way going to be assignments or like, there's nothing to prove. You can come, you can absorb, you can witness, you can participate, you can experience, you can share. And that's what you get out of this. And that's part of why the cost is what it is. I kept a very, very, very low cost on this because I asked myself, like, I always ask myself, this is how I price everything. What do I need to deliver this? Don't get me wrong, there was a little bit of, because the price came out so easy, the deliverables came out so easy. I had a concern for about 3 seconds that what if I don't sell any of this course? What if I get 3 people that sign up and I just agreed to teach a 10-week program with all of these like free or discounted perks and I only make like $2,000? That would be the worst. And yet, that thought lasted like 3 seconds because there was a follow-up thought that said, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen because of how easy this is. The ease through which all of this is coming out right now is proving to me that this is going to be easy. Keep doing what I'm doing and it's going to be easy. Now, when I launched the course and immediately started making phenomenal sales, like phenomenal sales, I was so happy. I was so happy. I was so giddy. I was little kid giddy. Because I suddenly realized I had worked less, I was in a better relationship, and I was making more money than I think I may have ever historically experienced. Today, I'm doing very well financially. I'm in a really, really good, connected dynamic emotional manifester. Oh my god, I don't even know what to call him. I used to get so squeamish about that. I don't even care. Like, truly, I don't even care. Whether there's a label on it, the label doesn't give me the security. And whether there's the label on it, it doesn't seem to change the behavior. Like, the behavior is full-blown, committed, monogamous, exclusive relationship. That's the behavior of it. We just don't really talk about it. Because whether he's he doesn't bring this perspective from human design. He brings this perspective from his own awareness. I bring this perspective from human design. But it's the the understanding that we both have that you can't really plan for the future. All it really does is put pressure. When you're planning, when you got these goals, when you got these expectations, it feels like pressure. And not only that, pressure that like we don't know where it comes from. When him and I feel pressure in our relationship, it'll be because like our parents are like, so what's going to make it work this time? And we're like, could you just not ask us that question with the negative attachment to it? Like, in a way, it's almost like mind your own business. Like, I'm minding my business in my relationship, you mind your business. And it's not that I don't want to talk about my relationship or be asked about it. It's that I don't need to defend it or justify it or prove it to anybody else. And the cool thing is, like, when he brings me his belief of, like, we don't need to put that kind of pressure on things. Like, we're doing fine. We're doing what we're doing. Why do we need to talk about what we're doing? It's so beautiful for me because without it coming through the lens of human design, I still hear it through the lens of human design. I hear his receptivity. I hear his emotional authority. I hear him really saying, like, I'm here, like, I'm here all the time. I'm right in front of you. Like, you don't have to ask me where I am, basically. When we live existentially, when we just are what we are, our relationship seems to work. Like, this is the least I've ever talked about my relationship with the person I'm in a relationship in, and it's working so well. That's like, that in itself is like kind of mind-blowing to me and something I'm still processing and integrating. In many ways, I stopped trying in my relationship. It's not that I stopped caring. It's not that I stopped being aware. It's not that I stopped being considerate. It's that I stopped trying so hard from a mental place to force things to turn out a certain way because I was so anxious about not having control over things. Now, I want you to hear part of what I've said about I'm less anxious. I'm not trying so hard to control things. I'm actually significantly less productive than I've been for most of the year or most of my life. I'm also relatively, almost entirely unmedicated. So a couple other things happened and I wanted to observe to see. And I noticed I just stopped taking my ADHD medicine. Vyvanse is what I'm on. I noticed that if it was just a normal day, I didn't take it. So I took it one day when I taught a class. I took it another day when I recorded a bunch of content. In the last 4 weeks, I have only taken 3 or 4 pills. But the last time that I took a pill, I had a very high heart rate for the whole day. It felt like I was revving an engine while also idling. It felt like being stuck at an intersection and my car was revving, but there wasn't actually any need to go anywhere. Which was really interesting because a month before that, I went back to my psychiatrist to ask her to up my dosage. I had her up me to the point of taking 2 every day, 3 on high pressure days, because I needed it at the time to be able to get through what I was getting through. But the less I focused on being productive, the less significant the medication seemed to be. And then I realized it started to feel better to be off of it. It started to feel better to feel, I won't say nothing, that's not what I'm trying to say, but like no stimulation. I started to shift rather than wanting like something to keep me focused. I shifted the other way. I was like, I want to relax more and more and more and more. I want to relax as much as I can. Being in a relationship helps me relax because when I'm alone, Oh, I am a hamster in a cage. I can be so neurotic so quickly because my brain goes so fast. And when I'm alone and my brain is going really fast, I will do so much stuff just to like distract myself, busy myself, side quest myself. But right now, I'm actually way more interested in being relaxed. I want, like, if I were to take a pill, it would be some form of a chill pill. Honestly, my quote-unquote chill pill is magnesium. I probably drink between 400 and 600 milligrams of magnesium a day. Right now, I'm drinking magnesium and glutamine because I want to use the glutamine to help repair my stomach lining because I get stress tummy, which is like a little bit acidic. And that's what I use as a sign to be like, nah, Sam, you're probably slipping into doing too much. Like, I'm having a bit of an aversion to coffee. I'm only halfway through a coffee that I've been nursing for actually the last 2 hours. My Ember mug keeps things so hot I can't nurse a coffee for 2 hours. But it's just not the feeling that I want. The feeling that I want is very like basic, neutral, calm, grounded, relaxed, regulated. And I feel the most like that in my relationship, unmedicated, not working that much. And then it blows my mind that this is the month I've made the most money in my business ever. Ever. You know what that has done for my confidence? You know what that has done for my projector-ness? Like my projector attitude. I'm like, holy shit, it gets easier. Holy shit, it gets better. It blows my mind how good it gets. I'm consistently shocked at how good it gets. This is the information so many of you care about. Yes, this has been a personal story, and yeah, I delved into some mechanics. But especially if you're a projector listening to this, this is what you care about. You want to hear that you didn't have to choose between love or money. You can have both. You want to hear that you don't have to work that much because it's not about what you do, it's about what you see. When I could hear, Sam, you're so good at breaking down the complex aspects of human design. You're so good at making human design understandable. Every time I would hear that, I hear this parallel phrase. Design of a transmitter. Design of a transmitter. When you are recognized, above all else, you will be recognized for your channels because the channel is what makes the type, or the configuration of channels is what makes the type. I'm a projected channel. I am invited to guide according to being a design of a transmitter. Ultimately, I'm a propaganda creator. I am a translator. I am a marketer. I have the ability to make the complex information in human design understandable to people. I can meet you where you're at, and I can break down the information without watering down the information or degrading the information. When that became the focus of my recognition, of my system, of my reputation, it was so clear that I would be offering that course. And so I did. And it has gone phenomenally well so far. So, to the projector who DM'd me and asked, what's my story now? That's where I'm at today. It's a fucking great place to be.